When you first open Corel Painter Essentials 5, this is the welcome screen that will show up. And if you're new to Painter, then I think some of these, the Quick Start Guide and other things, are very, very useful. For the most part, since I've used the software, I find this more of a hindrance. And so I'll uncheck the Show This at Startup and just close it up. And then I'll click on, and we can't see it here, but I'm actually just selecting New, and I'll select a blank file here. What I'd like to do is take a couple minutes to show you the different brushes in Painter, because this is where it really excels over many of the other painting software that's out there. I'm going to select the brush tool up here, and then the way that brushes are selected in Painter is I'm going to click on the little icon up here. It brings down a list, and what I have along the left side right here, these are the different categories. And each category, when I click on it, then it will show you the different brushes that are in that category. So under acrylics and oils, we have a wide range, and if I oops, I didn't mean to actually click on it. If I just scroll my brush or the cursor over the top of this, you can see that there's a little thumbnail of what each of the strokes will be. For example, if I go with oils, acrylic and oils, one of my favorite is the wet oily brush here. Now to select a color, see what I have. I've got black right now. I'm using the color wheel here, and it's kind of a two-step process also. Is that along the outer ring, if I select the red color, then the inner triangle has tints, shades, and tones of that color, and then I can click within that triangle and to select my red color. If I wanted to select a blue, I first select it in the outside ring. I can move it around and then select the blue that I would want from the inside. Right. You can see a lot of different brushes. If I click on airbrush, one of my favorites is the coarse airbrush right here, and I have tilt control on my stylus, so how I tilt my pen will give me what I think looks like a pretty convincing airbrush. Right. The artist brushes, if you select them, again you can see the little thumbnail shows what they'll do. The photo painting brushes I talk about later in the video. Blenders are things I can use to blend the color that's already on the canvas. Chalk, pastels, and crayons, a wide variety of them. If I go with the square chalk, and I'm going to go to Navigator, just a fast way to zoom in, right, and change the brush control here. Now I can also select a variety of different papers, textures, and depending on the paper texture and the brush I'm using, I can create a lot of different effects there as well. I'm just going to zoom it back down here. The special effects brushes are a lot of fun. Some of my favorite are like the Hurricane, in that it will just kind of twist everything around. Right, a lot of fun to play with. I could play the whole video with just these on here. Particle brushes, I was surprised that they put that in. That's a new feature in the full version of Photoshop Painter. They do some really interesting things. Again, not enough time in this video to actually demonstrate much, but I was surprised and happy that they put those particle brushes in. One of my favorite brushes is in the pencil, pens, and markers is the scratch board tool, because if I use it with black, it will give me some very thin and thick lines. And each of these brushes you can also control by going with Edit. Again, it's off the screen, but it's Preferences, Brush Tracking, and it's a way to kind of customize the brush so that the pressure and everything works well with your kind of strokes. Next, I'd like to show you how to paint from a photo. I have the Photo Painting tab opened up here, and I'm going to browse for the picture that I want to use. It's going to be this eagle. Now when it comes in, it looks like just a blank screen or a blank file right now, but what Painter has done is it's established a cloning relationship with the original photo. And so when I take my brush and go over it, the colors from the original photo will show up. All right, there's also a feature down here. Now, I'm looking at number 3, auto painting. You can have it paint itself, but I think you get a much more natural look if you go with the paint by hand. And there is what's called show tracing paper. If I turn that on, you'll be able to see the image kind of underneath it, and you can also control the opacity of the tracing paper. By default, Essentials will select the soft cloner. I don't use that one because it makes it look too much like a photograph, and I want it to look more like a painting. So I've just clicked on the brushes here, and actually I'm going to go with the Bristol oil brush, and I'm going to increase the size right now. And for this video, and actually this is the way I often do paint from photos, is I'm going to turn off the tracing paper. You'll see what's happening a little bit more. Is at the very beginning, I just try and fill, kind of go over, and it's almost like regular painter would block in things. And right now my goal is just to bring in, as relatively fast as I can, the colors from the original photo, just to cover the canvas just for a beginning. And I'm not quite scribbling, I'm kind of going in directions that kind of radiate out right now from the middle. And things are blurry right now, and that's because I'm working so large and so fast. This is just my own personal approach. You can approach this in many different ways, but I found that for me, I like to at least get some color in here before I start going in and pulling out the details and painting things a little bit in a more controlled method. All right, but a very fast way of getting in the basic colors. Now if I zoom in here and just kind of focus on the head here, I can either use the same brush with a little bit more controlled strokes or go down smaller, and it still is going to pull the color and the details from the photo. But now I can decide on what details I want, and my strokes are going a little bit more in the direction that a traditional painter would go. Now, if you find it helpful at times to turn the tracing paper on, but what I've found for the most part is when the tracing paper is on, it's hard for me to tell what I've actually have painted. So usually at this stage, I don't have the tracing paper on, but I can get smaller brushes. I can use different brushes as well. Smaller brushes, smaller strokes are going to start to bring in the detail. And the different brushes, and there's quite a few that you can use from here, will all create slightly different effects. The camel oil cloner actually brings in almost the photo exactly as it is, so I may use that sometimes just for a few detailed areas. But if you want it to look kind of like a painting, then you don't want it to, you want to kind of have a little bit more brush strokes. You can also select any of the other brushes. I could go with the oils and acrylic brushes. I'm trying to think of what a detail brush here. And if I turn off, I mean, I can paint with the clone color on, but if I unclick that, then it would allow me to select any color from the color wheel here, or even, I'm just pressing the Alt key, I can select color from here as well, and I can go back in. It's a little bit hard to see what I'm doing here. And I can go back and actually paint, more details in just on my own without using the clone feature. But this is one of the best features of the Corel is that it really allows you to take a digital photo and kind of hand paint it and make it look like a digital painting.